Joining me now to discuss this and the wider implications are the columnist and broadcaster Milo Yiannopoulos and the journalist Rennie.
I'll pause it for a second. That guy's not a chess master. That's Milo Yiannopoulos. He's a journalist. He's like a dude from England who's like heavily involved with like Gamergate, and he's like a big anti-third wave feminist.
Gotcha.
I don't know if he would identify with that, but he's a journalist from the UK. He's like he writes for Breitbart.com, I think. Yeah.
Don't know.
It's a conservative website.
Our central London studios for us this evening. Very good evening to you both. Rennie, how do you feel about being
gay,
called
so it
different
sucks
because
cock.
you're hardwired differently? I'm sure it's not something you've failed
God
to hear
damn, just
before.
fucking
It
ask
just
a question.
seems to keep cropping up. Is it necessary?
It's ridiculous. It's 50s thinking, you know. I mean, it's just so ridiculous, this biological determinism. Frankly, you know...
I mean, how is it ridiculous to admit in any way, like you have to admit in some capacity, men and women are not identical?
Yeah.
I mean, what is she
I've
talking
run into
about?
women who fail to acknowledge that, even in musculature, that we're not different. And it's crazy, but for them, the idea that equality consumes their whole being, it feels like, and they cannot even imagine there being any differences. In order for equality to be possible, in their minds, everything, including biology, needs to be equal.
Like, I understand, like, yeah, you don't want to be using, like, biology or, like, some sort of racist science to, like, justify some sexist or racist, you know, campaign. You know, blacks are inherently stupid or something like
Women
that.
are bad at chess.
Yeah, right, or not as good or whatever. But you have to admit, it's undeniable that there are differences between men and women. That's a biological fact.
Yeah.
You know, humans are, you know, what the hell is the term I'm looking for here? Sexually dimorphic.
Yeah.
That is real. All right, let's see what she's
We
got to
have
say.
different
This is not
parts,
just
and there
50s.
are
All right, just go.
Core differences that you can't look over.
Interests and talent and, you know, passions for particular topics, subjects, sports, arts, whatever, like, they're not relegated to either gender, but unfortunately, because of some stereotypical thinking, often one gender is encouraged to pursue, you know, a sport or an art more so than the other. And actually, when you look at my colleague...
I mean, that's just a narrative feeling. Is there actually any evidence to support this? Like, yeah, guys are more encouraged to play football than women.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any actual evidence to say what she's talking about? Sure, there are gender roles.
I mean, we all know that to be true regardless.
Do we
of the
know
number.
that, though?
There are socially observable things that are hard to measure like
No,
that.
there are tons of things that are intuitively seem the case.
Yeah.
But when you actually measure them and do science, they're not so. Is there actual science or evidence to show that men are encouraged to play chess more than women?
Not the chess, but the football I can definitely see. You don't think that's a thing?
I'm not denying it, but I'm saying, like, they don't even bother with producing evidence for it. It's not even an issue
with the
for
chess,
them.
I think that's completely separate. She's making the comparison that it's like football, and I completely disagree. She should name some examples in that case.
I mean, not even example. You can't just
make
anecdotally talk
that
about this.
comparison for Barbie dolls and G.I. Joe dolls and being kind of swayed into picking one or the other, whereas you shouldn't already have an opinion on it. If you had no input, how would you be able to differentiate between the two?
Yeah.
At the Telegraph, Radhika Sagani, she wrote a piece just this morning speaking to like young girls who play chess, and actually what she found out is that they're dropping out at the age of 12, probably because, you know, they're not encouraged, or, you know, there's an environment of...
See, like, what is she talking about? She's just saying probably, because they're not encouraged, they're not in a good environment. Kids have different interests when they're young, and they do different things. Tons of people in the United States play soccer when they're 6 and never play it ever again. Mm-hmm. Their interests change, they develop. She has produced no evidence, and evidence is not even an issue. If she could it's not an issue for these people.
Yeah, she's saying because, and she's also correlating two things that may be completely unrelated. That women stop playing chess at this age, therefore it's because there's a culture preventing them from continuing on. She's making a conclusion.
Yeah.
She's jumping to one.
She's just, there's a narrative out there. There's a narrative out there that she is prescribing to that there's a system or a culture of oppression, or enforcing gender norms, or gender roles, the patriarchy, ever elusive, invisible, pushing this way, waning that way, that's making people do things. But what she even talked about, she said somebody wrote an article. It's like, did that person do a study? Like, is this some anecdotal thing where one school, these girls, we don't even know. She just brings up some unknown thing and then doesn't even back that unknown thing up with any facts. I don't even know why people can take this seriously at all. Like, science is real. Why don't people even attempt it?
But we argue a lot of things that are not scientific.
This is something that should be, though.
Trying to make logical jumps.
Like, this is like with the wage gap, people just buy into the narrative.
Oh, yeah. No,
there is science and economics behind it, but people just don't care. The narrative exists, that they believe into it, and they don't even bother attempting to look at evidence or to do evidence.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. This morning, I noticed a lot of people on my Facebook feed were sharing this paper from the New Yorker that was about how California residents started freaking out at global warming because they saw their lawns going bad. And they had this quote about, I knew that polar bears were starving to death, but they didn't tell me my lawn was going to go to shit. And they were posting it as if people were actually saying it, but it was a satirical piece.
And they thought it was real.
Exactly. They were posting as if it were completely real and that's how stupid people are or whatever. And I know people say things that are similar, but in this specific case, the paper they were citing, it was made up to point out that people behave like this.
I mean, one thing that I've heard is, like, in the age of the internet, like, information is rampant. And so there's a big problem with trying...
Misinformation.
Exactly. There's no way...
The
people don't really have tools or ways to know what is bad or bogus information.
The internet.
Well, yeah, that actually takes effort.
Yeah. Are you saying people are lazy?
People are lazy, and a story comes out, and it just gets bounced around.
And if it's sensational, sometimes you want to lie to yourself just to tell a good story to someone else.
Yeah.
I feel like that sometimes where I'm like, this might be questionable, but it makes a good story, so I'm just going to believe it.
Right.
You know
all right. Let's hear what she's talking about. So your
Around
girls
telling
are dropping
them
out.
it's not for them, it's not cool, etc., etc. So, this hardwired brain stuff, like it's retrosexism.
So, Milo Yiannopoulos, does it matter if men and women are wired differently, have different skills?
No, it doesn't matter in the sense that they are equal but different, but it simply isn't true to say that there is no difference whatsoever between the aptitudes of men and women. And it is, without question, true that there are some biological differences between men and women, and we know that from our anatomy. But we also know it from experiments that we do on young children before they've had the opportunity to be socialized, the sorts of toys that they go for. And that holds true, actually, for other bits of the animal kingdom as well. Some of the reason why girls drop out of STEM subjects at college and chess clubs is because they keep losing. And one of the reasons they keep losing is that it does seem to be the case that chess as a game plays to some of the male intellectual virtues. And when Simon Baron-Cohen talks about these, the way he describes it is men are good at systematizing and women are good at empathizing. And there is some reason to suppose that may have some basis in biology. It's very trendy these days.
What do you think of what he's saying there? I mean, to me, I don't really know that makes sense because a lot of times, at least in chess, there is a separate division in leagues for women. Like, there's a women's grandmaster rating. There's a U.S. women's championship. There's a separate thing for women.
Yeah, but what he's saying is besides that.
Well, I mean, he's talking about this is specifically about chess and why women are dropping out of chess. No, he's talking about why women are dropping out of chess. He's saying because they're losing, but they would be competing. Sure, they would be competing against other guys, to be sure, especially with their own chess club and whatnot. But the leagues and the tournaments that are available for women are against other women, so I don't really, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I understand what he's talking about.
Well, overall, you really don't. I guess when you're a kid, you do play co-ed sports, but they separate pretty quickly when the sex starts to matter.
Yeah.
That doesn't really happen in chess.
It's much more visibly evident, though, in physical sports than it is in chess. Guys are just bigger, and it's easier to see.
It's more visible sport.
Yeah, it's easier to see. It's easier to see a guy run much faster than a girl than it is in chess.
The skill in chess is less observable to the naked eye. But if you're interested in football or you're interested in chess, to that person, the knowledgeable observer, there is a huge difference. There's a discrepancy. If that is the case, then it's totally understandable. I totally get it. Laura doesn't like playing the same games I do. She's not nearly as good at them.
Yeah, I can't get my girlfriend to play any video games with me,
And I always understand. I just don't get. And sometimes I ask her about this, like, do you just not feel the urge to overcome those losses? You know what I mean? I don't know. Are they just too overwhelming?
Oh, you're saying like girls are not as competitive?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think testosterone does play a part in our aggression, and I think a competitive nature is part of the aggression.
Or
We're
maybe
competing.
they're not as like
The
maybe
tiger,
like
right?
I feel like I've come across a lot of women who are very competitive.
There are exceptions for every rule,
But
though, right? There are men who are
I
not.
feel like they're not as competitive. They're not as competitive in the same way, and I don't really have any evidence to show this. Like guys will get like super competitive over like
Yeah.
a badminton game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Silly things.
Yeah, something where
All
it's
the
like
time.
where like or like ping pong.
Arguments.
Arguments. What has it where like maybe
What has
girls
it?
are actually make more sense in the things that they're competitive at.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I guess like the whole premise of this doesn't really make any sense. Like they're talking about girls dropping out as if like they have no like autonomy in their decision making processes. Like sure,
Well, it's
they're
like
kids.
there's an invisible pressure on them that they shouldn't be doing this. Like it's wrong.
But I mean,
Like,
how
for me,
strong is
there's
this?
a social pressure for me not to take ballet. If I was so interested, I would feel the social pressure like people are going to call me a fag. You know, that's a real
Yeah.
possibility. It's
But
a
there's
similar
like
thing
there's
with the
more
chess
and
the
lesser
women, is what she's
degrees
saying.
of these quote unquote social pressure for things, and like, I mean,
Yeah, far less in chess if there is any.
but I mean, do these people not have like the autonomy to decide what they want to do? I mean, obviously these people are like, even if you like chess to some degree, and people are like, oh, you can't play chess, you Poindexter.
Yeah.
They're weighing the options like, oh, do I want to play chess as much as I want to be, socialized or something
Exactly.
like that?
Do I want to have more friends? Do I want to play chess? That's
And she's talking.
kind
I
of
guess
what she's making the
she's
comparison
her general point, is girls are more pressured to not play chess. But
Yeah.
everybody thinks, nerds. I mean, not everybody, but
Yeah, it's an equality of a sort. Anyone who plays chess is ostracized, not just the women. Happens to men too.
especially like in school. I mean, later in life, I think when people like mature and get settled down, people start to have appreciations for those things.
Some.
Yeah,
You
some.
know, the people who are picking on it
Some.
are probably the ones who still have no interest in it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what. All right. Let's keep it going.
Is to say that everything is socially determined, but that's not what the science says, and it's not either what common sense says, because if it were true, these days there would be a lot more representation of women in the sciences, in astrophysics, in philosophy, in mathematics, and in chess, but there isn't.
So, Rennie, does that make sense? And does it really matter? I mean, should we just accept that we are slightly different, have different skills, pursue them, or should we all be striving to be as good as each other at everything?
It seems really reductive, to be honest with you. I mean, if you look around at your, male and female friends and families, you'll see a vast, a huge, wide variety and diversity in interests and talents and passions, right? And also, I think that it's ridiculous.
I mean, that was a completely incoherent, nonsensical statement. Did
Yeah,
she
I
even
agree.
say anything?
No, well, she was saying, I get what she's trying to say.
What is she
But
saying
she
there?
didn't mention the skill of it. She said people have a varying degree of interest, as if to counter his thought that men are better at something, as if that's what they were interested in. That's where
So
she's
she's saying the
wrong,
only reason why people are better at something is their level and degree of interest.
basically. But yeah, she wasn't addressing, women may be interested in something, but it doesn't mean they're
That doesn't
good
make
at
any
it.
sense. Like, tons
Which
of
is a
people are
completely
really
different-
interested in basketball, but they suck ass at it.
Exactly.
Oh, whatever. Just keep it going.
And that even is even more removed from the argument, which was originally as are women being pressured, discouraged.
Their
from joining
interests
chess.
are being discouraged. I mean, it seems like, I guess, she's saying, people have varying degrees of interests, and women's interests are being channeled and discouraged.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see what she has to say.
But honestly, that the varying degrees of interest, I think, was more in response to his talking about specific things that men were better at, in quotations.
Right. But I mean, even from his side, he's taught. I mean, obviously he's not dropping scientific studies out there, but he's mentioning science and trying to say what the science is saying. She's not saying anything. She's just
It's a purely emotional
it's
equalism.
a feeling or equal. Yeah.
Yeah, feeling for equality. That's what it is. And it's I think it's like this based on my emotional experience, rather than what the other man is alleging is scientifically told.
Right.
to assume that the reason why one gender is overrepresented in a field is because the other gender is not quite up to it. I mean, often, you know, if a field is homogenous, right, which, as we can see, chess is homogenous, that all...
Chess is definitely not homogenous. It just isn't. It's just not homogenous. Women play chess. There are women grandmasters. There are women grandmasters who have earned grandmaster levels. There's a women's U.S. chess championship. There's a women's world chess championship. It's not homogenous. To say that women aren't playing chess is just wrong.
Yeah, she probably doesn't know that much about chess. She doesn't look like a chess player. I don't know why she's commenting on something she knows.
Like, that's just a flat-out wrong
commenting.
statement. It's just demonstrably incorrect. It's not homogenous. Like, my favorite chess YouTube channel, you know, the St. Louis Chess and Scholastic Center, like, there's multiple women, you know, teachers on there or commentators on there. You know, grandmaster level women who, you know, host events, comment on games, participate in tournaments. She's literally just making stuff up.
Yeah.
also brings with it a culture that makes things unwelcoming for people who do not quite fit the bill. Like it's almost victim blaming in a way to suggest that the reason why there's an overrepresentation of a particular kind of person is because the other kind of person just isn't quite up to it. Like, it's ridiculous. If that was the case, we don't live in a meritocracy. So
it's nice to have this sort of vague, waffly sort of.
What does she mean we don't live in a meritocracy?
That's what we're supposed to live in, I thought.
I thought
that was what capitalism is a meritocracy. As opposed to, like, aristocracy?
Yeah, or feudalism, or some other... I mean, these are just, like, there's a narrative, and she just believes it, and there's no evidence to be found. I mean, chess is definitely a meritocracy. You cannot be good at chess unless you're good. You sign up an account on chess.com.
Yeah, you're not born good at chess. It's not handed to you.
You're not going to win chess tournaments, or you're not going to be good at chess unless you play chess. Go on chess. Anybody can go on chess.com. Anybody can download the app on their phone and play it.
She already looks pretty defeated. Oh, let's finish this out.
Yeah, it's a pretty somber green sweater she has on there.
Has varied interests. What the science suggests is that, for example, when it comes to IQ is distributed differently between the sexes. Now, IQ gets a really bad rap because it's not a great indicator of some things. It's said to be sexist, it's said to be biased towards white people, whatever. The point is that it tests, in this case, it tests all of the skills that make you good at chess really well. It's about puzzles, it's about games, exactly the skills that make you good at chess, make you good at IQ. Now, the way that IQ is distributed differently in the sexes is that women tend to cluster around the mean. Women are more likely to have an IQ that is somewhere near the average, whereas men go right to the top or right to the bottom more often, which is why you get great genius male artists and philosophers, but it's also why men fill all the prisons, because men seem to occupy more of the ends of the IQ scale. And now IQ is pretty much the best measure we have to predict whether somebody will be good at chess.
And what it proves, and what it also proves, is that men and women can talk forever. It's been a pleasure talking to you both. We're going to leave it there. Thank goodness we're all different.
Yes, indeed. Thanks.
I mean,
ouch.
She
seemed like a sore loser there.
She didn't say anything. She just went with her feminist narrative, and he was actually talking about science. Obviously, he didn't present the actual evidence there. He's on a newscast. But what is he talking about? He's talking about actual measurable scientific things. She's saying
that you can then verify.
She's saying feels like, what she, thinks is going on. There's no even attempt at any semblance of accuracy or what is actually going on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Well, this is just like a mini thing, right?
What do you mean, play us out?
To play us out.
I don't know what that means. What do you mean, play us out? So, moral of the story is women just can't play chess, right?
They can play chess.
Just not good.
Well, either the guy's going to be way crappier than her or way better.
According to the science, yes.